Hi, friends. I had a cat named Jessica who lived to be 18 years old. Now, the average age of an indoor cat is 10 to 15 years, but Jessica lived to be 18, probably because we took good care of her, but she also took good care of herself. And I learned a few tricks about self care from watching her. And I'm going to share a little bit about stretching, a tip that she showed me, as well as the benefits of stretching. I'm going to share that with you in just a few moments. Hi, friends. I'm Marcelin Bailey of Stress Talk with Marcelin. This is the place for working women who want to learn how to manage their overwhelming stress and, in addition, boost their energy because we know that stress zaps our energy. Well, it's raining where I am. Actually, it's storming where I am. So you're going to hear some water tinkling and you may hear some thunder. So hopefully, I'll be able to stay with you for as long as possible. And we're going to pray that the lights don't go out or that lightning doesn't strike something that we need. How about that? You hear the thunder? Yeah, I'm hearing the thunder. I hear the thunder rolling and the waves are probably crashing, but we're going to get through this live stream. Before we get to the topic at hand, though, I want to remind you to do a few things for me. First, I want you to follow me on Facebook and on Instagram. You can find me at ML Bailey Consultants. When you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, you'll get all that good stuff that I share throughout the week about stress release and stress management. I always give some tips about how we can lower our stress levels and boost our energy. So I want you to make sure that you're following me on Insta and on FB. The other thing that I want you to do is subscribe to my YouTube channel. ML Bailey Consultants. You'll find all of the replays of our live streams as well as other videos that I've done about stress management and stress relief. So I want you to subscribe as well. So what are we talking about today? Yeah, what are we talking about today? Well, I told you about my cat, Jessica. And Jessica is my beloved cat. She was so sweet. And she found me when she was a kitten. Before I found her, well, I'm sorry, before she found me, I was not a cat person. I didn't like cats. I didn't even want a cat. But this little kitten walked up and she was so cute. She was all black and she had green eyes, beautiful green eyes, and she was so gentle. She walked up to me and she just started purring. And she was rubbing my leg and I was like, I should take you home. So that's what I did. I took her home and I had her for 18 years. She was with me when I got married. She was with me when I had my first child. She was with me when I had my second child. And she mothered me through those pregnancies. She also mothered my children. She protected them. Any stranger would come to the home, someone she didn't know, she would stand between those babies and those people. I mean, I had relatives who used to say, is she all right? Is that cat all right? Because she's looking at me funny. That's because she was going to protect her little babies. That's how dear that cat was to me. We lost her a few years ago because she contracted cancer and we had to put her down. We couldn't treat her. But It taught me a lot of things. She took really good care of herself. And I watched her. I watched her because I was like, she was so graceful. And she always did things like she was always grooming herself. She's a little prissy little thing, but she would always groom herself. She was always making sure that her fur was in the right place, right? Sometimes we have to do that. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to make sure our hair is a certain way or our nails are a certain way. We don't often do that because we're busy running around doing everything else for everybody else. Well, one of the things that I often watched Jessica do was stretch. There are so many benefits to stretching that we sometimes don't pay attention to. And I'm going to go over those benefits. And then I'm going to talk about how we can stretch. And I'm going to give you a little demonstration. How about that? That's why I'm dressed like this. I'm kind of dressed like I'm about to work out. I worked out this morning, though. I did. I did. I know I'm jumping from subject to subject, but I did work out this morning. Yoga. Then I practiced a little Tai Chi because I'm relearning Tai Chi. So I practiced a few of the movements, and then I got on the treadmill and I walked. So I did work out this morning, but I've cleaned up since then. I don't want you to think that okay, let me get on topic. Okay, so I'm talking about stretching today. One of the benefits of stretching is that it gives us a boost of energy. We've been talking about how stress zaps our energy. Well, stretching gives us a boost of energy. And it does that because it prepares our muscles by injecting blood into those muscles. It increases the blood flow into our muscles. And because of that, it makes us feel more alert and more awake. That's why I advocate and stress strongly that you all and I should stretch throughout the day. We need to make that a part of our work routine as well as our routine when we're off. Stretching, we can do it anywhere. You can do it wherever you're standing, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment. But just keep in mind that when you stretch, your energy level is going to go up. It's going to increase. Another thing that stretching does for us is it increases our mobility and our range of motion. Now, just as an example, you see older people who are much older than me, gray, who are much older than me, and they move their movements are contracted. It's hard for them to move and to have a broad range of motion. That's because our muscles tighten. They get tight. And as we get older, our muscles tighten and they weaken. So when we want to do things like pick something up, reach for something on the shelf, if we have not been stretching our muscles, if we haven't been working them and moving them, it's going to be hard to do that. My mom is in her 80s and I watch her. She does pretty good for somebody who's in her 80s. She's moving. She moves a lot. As a matter of fact, she bowls still. 86 and she's still bowling. My aunt is 84 and she still bowls. I hope I get those genes. I hope I have those genes. But sometimes it's hard for her to move and she'll grunt. Like she'll reach for something and she'll say, oh, right? That's because her range of motion is constricted. So when we stretch, we are able to lengthen our muscles, loosen our joints, and we can strengthen our muscles as well. And that allows us that mobility and that range of motion, especially if you want to do some popping locking or whatever they call it now. So, what else? Okay, so we're talking about stress, and stretching helps us by relieving stress and tension in our muscles. I've been harping on that for almost 2 months now. When we move, we release that stress that is contained in our muscles. Think about how often you sit and you're in position, and then when you move, it hurts. That's because your muscle has tightened up. When you stretch, it releases that tightness. Also, when you couple stretching with deep breathing, it lowers your heart rate. Yeah, your heart rate goes down and it helps to stabilize your blood pressure. So, we want to couple stretching with deep breathing. That's why yoga is so good. Yoga does that all the time. You're actually, when you're doing yoga, you are actually moving with the breath. It is not uncommon for a yoga instructor to tell you to breathe. When we move, we don't breathe right often. Or when we're sitting, we don't breathe the way we're supposed to. We don't get that deep belly breathing in, right? We breathe up here. When we breathe, we get that deep breath and we're stretching. We get lots of oxygen into our bloodstream, and the oxygen is flowing into our muscles because when we stretch, that's what happens. We get a good flow of blood into our muscles, and that can only be good. So, those are three things that stretching helps us to do. But it also helps with other physical things. And I'm just going to read those if you don't mind. Arthritis. Stretching helps relieve and reduce symptoms of arthritis as well as lower back pain. Now, I know sometimes I have lower back pain or pain in my back because I've strained something, I've lifted wrong, I've reached for something, or I've twisted wrong, and it's hurt my back. Stretching helps to relieve that. Also, when we stretch, because our range of motion and our mobility increases, it helps us to prevent falling. So as we get older, we may not be as prone to falling as we were if we didn't stretch, or if we didn't do yoga, or if we didn't do Tai Chi. I've talked about how it increases our energy and it improves our blood flow already, right? But the other thing about stretching is it helps to relieve soreness that's in our muscles. So I know some of you do work out or some of you walk and your muscles may get sore. Doing some stretching, light stretching, will help to relieve that soreness. So, how do we stretch? What's the best way to start stretching? One of the things you want to always make sure you do is instead of going into a stretch cold where, like, if you've been sitting for a while, if you're just getting out of bed, you start stretching, doing that runner stretch. You want to make sure you're warming up your joints. You want to make sure that if you are going to if you are going to stretch, you want to make sure that you um, you're warming yourself up. For example, one of the things that I do before I get out of bed, I go through a routine where I'm actually loosening up my body. And part of that routine is I'll wiggle my toes, I'll move my feet around, I'll twist my ankles around, just do some circles. And also, I may flex, right? Flex my feet just to get a little bit of movement in my body. This helps to warm up my joints and it also helps to warm my muscles. And I'll do this even before I do any type of stretching. The other thing that I'll do is I'll even start warming up my hands. So, oops, sorry. So, the same with my hands. I'll flex my wrist, I'll wiggle my fingers, I'll wiggle my fingers, I'll do some circles with my wrist, and that all helps to, again, warm up that part of my body. So, why do I do this? I do this because before we stretch or before I stretch, I want to make sure that my body is somewhat warm. And that helps to prevent injury. Because, yeah, stretch, but we can also, if as we stretch, it can cause us to hurt ourselves if we're not doing it properly and if our body is not warmed up sufficiently. So I'll start by doing just very simple, very basic movements of my joints, so that, and my fingers, my toes, to start warming myself up before I get going with the stretch. So, when you stretch, so we talked about warming up. Warming up is really very key. And I'm going to show you some other clips of how to warm up, right? Because when we warm up, it's not just when we're about to get out of bed. We want to warm up if we've just been sitting for a while. Sometimes, if I'm sitting at my desk at work doing notes or documentation, I can sit at my desk for hours at a time, really, without moving. I shouldn't, and I'm learning not to. But there are times when I'm sitting at my desk for an extended period of time. When I stand up, I have to remember to go through those warm up routines, wiggling my toes in my shoes. Sometimes I'll take my shoes off. In my office, I can take my shoes off if I want to. Take my shoes off, wiggle my toes, roll my ankles a little bit, do some circles with my hands, wiggle my fingers. I'll also do some shoulder rolls just to loosen up. And then I'll go into a stretch. So, warming up is the first thing you want to do before you start. The other thing that you want to do is remember that a little bit goes a long way. There was a commercial years ago for a hair care product. And those of you who are my age and older will remember this phrase. The tagline for this product, which was called Brill Cream, was "A dab will do you. A little dab will do you." The same goes for stretching. You never want to overextend. You Because you, again, you can injure yourself if you overextend. Also, you don't want to stretch to the point of being in pain. Some people will do that. You're hurting, you feel that ache in your hamstring, and they're saying, "Yes, keep bending, going forward." No, you don't want to do that. That's not what we're talking about. You want to make sure that you do not overextend, and you want to make sure that you're not in pain when you're doing stretching. And that's stretching any part of your body. You want to be able to stretch and feel the extension, and it should feel good, not painful. It should not be uncomfortable. Also, stretches are not something that are just tolerated. It should be a pleasurable experience. So, these are the things that Jessica taught me, right? She taught me that through watching her, that warm up first. She would never do a full body stretch without moving a little bit after her nap, or moving a little bit before her nap, and then she would do her full body stretch. Secondly, a little bit would do her. I never saw Jess much farther than she was capable. It always seemed like the stretch was very pleasurable to her. The third thing that I learned from her is slow and steady movement. When you are stretching, you want your movement to be fluid. Jessica's movements were fluid as well. She also made sure that as she was moving, she was extending very slowly. She would take her time to get into the full stretch, and then she would come out of it very slowly. Yoga instructors often give instructions that bring awareness to the movement when you're going into a stretch and when you're coming out of a stretch. And this is very key. We often want to jump in and stretch, but the key is to make sure our movement is very fluid, right? And that we are experiencing the full benefit of the stretch. So, how long should you stretch? The experts say about 30 seconds is sufficient for a stretch. But you don't want to hold it for 5 minutes. I would say that if you get into a stretch, 30 minutes or less is probably sufficient for you. You want to do what feels good for you and feels good to your body. So let me show you a few more exercises that I do, or warm ups that I do before I do a full body stretch. Here, I'm just doing some knee rolls. I'll do a few squats, and I may just lift my legs slightly. Okay, I'll just play that one more time. Just some knee rolls, just to loosen up my knees, warm up my knee joints, and I'll lift them up after I do a few squats. Now, this is just what I do. You may have other warm up ideas that would work for you a little better. Then, the neck roll. If you're someone who has tightness in their neck when they are tightness in their neck when they have been sitting at their desk for a long time. I almost couldn't get that out. You want to do neck rolls. And the thing about neck rolls is you want to make sure that you follow your nose. Follow your nose. Some of us do neck rolls like this, right? You want to follow your nose. And let me play this again to see if we can get a full. Okay, here I'm going side to side, then I'm going up and down, and then I'm going to do a neck roll. And if you notice, I'm following my nose where I pointed it down. I go completely around, down, and then I'll go the other direction. Follow your nose. That is very key because you will get full extension. Another warm up that I do before I do the my here we go. I do shoulder rolls. And I'm sure you're familiar with shoulder rolls. Shoulder rolls again help to increase range of motion, and they feel good, and mobility. So, how do I do a full body stretch? And again, this full body stretch that I'm showing you is one that I do after I've been sitting at my desk for an extended period of time. I am going to start doing it more regularly because I recognize that it's important to move because movement helps to relieve stress. So let me show you my full body stretch. I'm bringing my arm way up. And I look up and I'm just going to bend over. Just bend over at the waist. And while I'm bending over, I just stay there for a few moments because I'm telling you, that's so relaxing to just sit there, stand there for a few moments. And I'll bend my knees a little bit and then I'll roll up one vertebrae at a time. And that is my full body stretch that I do when I'm sitting at my desk, when I've sat at my desk for an extended period of time. You can do that full body stretch any way you want, but that's just how I do it. Remember, your movement should be fluid. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is when I lift my arms, I am actually extending my fingertips to the side so that I'm feeling a stretch in my arms. I'm not just raising my arms, I'm actually extending them out. That's the reason that I go very slowly and in a fluid motion so that I can extend them and I can actually feel the, oh, that does feel good. I can feel the stretch in my arm from my fingers all the way to my shoulders. And as I bring them up, I continue to feel the stretch. And I can feel this stretch now because I'm reaching up all the way to the ceiling. I can feel the stretch in my sides. That's the trapezius. So in my lats, I don't know. I can't remember. But in my sides, I can feel it. So I want you to know stretching, again, is a great way to relieve stress. And stretching also brings additional benefits to us. So I want you to try that this week. I want you to try stretching more often. You can begin in bed, but make sure you begin by warming up and loosening those joints before you get out of bed. And then throughout the day, I want you to try doing full body stretch. If not a full body stretch, just stretch some parts of your body on a regular basis. And I think you'll find that you're relieving tension and your body feels at ease. Let me know what you think. Let me know how it works for you. Shoot me an email. Sign up for my newsletter, by the way. That'll get you. That'll help us to keep in contact. I know. The rain has stopped. We made it through our broadcast. We didn't have any lightning strikes, and the internet did not go out. I'm happy about that. I'm also happy that you joined me today. I'm Marcelin Bailey. Stay in touch. We'll talk soon. And as always, take good care.